Welcome, viewers and friends, to our today's transmission with the Unity Frequency Council on the YouTube channel, Return to Unity. We really appreciate you being here today. I do have some questions and topics to start out with, and then we'll be going into what the UFC, Unity Frequency Council, has to share from their own agenda and sharing desire today. So thank you so much for joining us, and stick around for all the fun times that are about to be ahead of us here. My first question for you today, Unity Frequency Council, is what does it mean when people refer to timeline jumping? I hear this a little bit, and Stefan maybe even have experienced it. So I was just wondering what your perspective on timeline jumping is, if you can help us to wrap our human brains around it, or any indications maybe when we might be experiencing it, or anything helpful like that.
You are actually experiencing it very often. Dreams, or even moments where your mind feels, you would say, fuzzy. However, what I notice you are referring to are the more dramatic shifts in taking place. What that means is more so of choosing to move into a different reality that doesn't fit within this one. Your physical body may have to stay in this one because it cannot, say, move into the other one. I know there's a specific example, and that's why this question was brought up. So yes, I'm going to say that that does in fact occur, of moving timelines. It's just not as dramatic most of the time. For example, you may have a timeline where you're working a specific job. If you have changed and you have chosen a different reality for yourself, simply moving timelines may just be that choice of leaving that specific job. You would not consciously notice the jumps that have occurred to get this to happen. So I do see a lot of talk about timelines, but if I can again state that it's not always dramatic, you are actually shifting timelines several times a day. It's just simply a matter of the decisions that you're making and the emotions that you're feeling. If you're speaking about humanity, yes, that would feel as a more dramatic shift. For example, why would you not think that a dramatic shift would be from ending of humanity to great joy in humanity? Of course, you're going to feel something more dramatic. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, I think so. It does lead me to ask how what I feel in a way that there may be a difference in how jumping timelines is defined by the humans who are saying it and your perception of it.
Most likely.
Would you like to define your definition of timeline jumping so that we can, I'm not sure, or are you able to perceive the differences in the definitions to explain to
From
us
what
what
I
those
see
differences?
in the human understanding is it's very dramatic. The reason why this question was asked in the first place had to do with certain individuals and death. Yes, that would in fact be someone jumping timelines if that was what they chose. From my perspective, it's not actually jumping a timeline, but jumping into another dimensional portal. Those are two different things by my definition, but I see that there is an interlap between the human definition of jumping into another dimension or choosing another dimension versus making a choice in the timeline of, say, your life. I shouldn't say life, maybe more reality makes more sense. There is an overlap which becomes very confusing, and that's why there's a lot of fear associated here. Or there's, even like we discussed before, people assuming they must wait for something rather than that reality appearing in that moment. I see. Like right now, I can give you the example that right now, if I look over at you, you have many different timelines at this very moment. There is a version of you at this very moment that is doing the exact same thing as you are right now, with the exception that you have a pet cat. You could choose to go focus in on that timeline, and then you wouldn't even notice that you have a cat and this is something different. This is not a dramatic shift because the conscious mind can't process what just happened. But yes, you have a timeline. At this very moment, you have a pet cat.
And I could choose to go to that timeline by acquiring a cat.
Ah, I see the difference. What I'm saying is you could very easily jump over. I'm using the word jump. You're not physically jumping, but it's very quick, like a blip, what you would feel in your reality. What would happen, rather than you choosing to have a cat necessarily, was that you would just wake up tomorrow morning and you would have a cat. Your conscious mind would not understand that this is something different than it was yesterday. So it's not, I'm choosing to go get a cat. It's you align in that timeline, you're focused in on that timeline, therefore it unfolded around you. Can you understand that difference?
Mm,
When I'm discussing the choices that you're making, the choices that you're making have to do with whatever band of frequency is aligning. Your choices are utmost important. For example, if you're choosing, I do not want my reality to have a pet cat, you wouldn't be in that other timeline. You would stay in this one. It's just your consciousness that's moving back and forth.
it just is, I guess I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around choosing a timeline and then just waking up the next morning and having a cat and not even
You wouldn't
knowing
have any
how.
idea that you even did that. Everyone you know would just already understand that you have a cat. Your conscious mind wouldn't say, where did this cat come from? You would wake up and understand that is your reality to have a pet cat. There would be no feeling of difference because that is where your conscious mind is focused on.
So how, so people saying like, oh, you're jumping timelines, etc., it's less of a conscious awareness that's happening most of
Right.
the time.
What your conscious awareness should be is in your very present moment at all times. That's what matters. The moving timelines happens on its own. It is not for the conscious mind to make the choice. The conscious mind can't because the whole point of the conscious mind is to be aware of your current reality. Your current reality may shift and move and change, but that's not the point of the conscious mind. So when I should make myself more clear. When I'm discussing making choices, those choices will affect your reality, not necessarily move it.
Right. Okay, and that makes sense. So why would people want to perceive, or what's the point of acknowledgement of timeline jumping? Is this just an
Because they
ego-based
aren't,
thing or
yes, they're not happy with their current reality. So they wish to understand it in a different way. It seems easier to explain that you're moving timelines or shifting timelines, therefore everything will change, when in fact they probably already did. It's easier to explain something like that. Humanity has moved through many timelines already. Yes, there have been some that are more dramatic, but that it really isn't your conscious mind's concern. To be so fixated on this doesn't help you. If you're simply curious and would like to see other timelines or perceive them, they would more feel like dreams to you.
okay.
Does seem like
That's
humans really love the more dramatic flair to things.
yeah, yes. Um,
I will answer the question without saying the individual's name because that keeps popping up. Yes, it is possible for someone to shift timelines or move timelines. Yes, it does happen where you would perceive them as not being in their physical body anymore, or you would perceive them as just non existent in your reality, which your conscious mind may determine that as death. That doesn't mean that's exactly what happened, but because of your reality and your particular timeline, the conscious brain must understand it, therefore, that's how they will understand it. That may not make much sense.
it likely makes sense to the person who that is for.
Yes.
Okay. And that's fine. Someone else may also understand it. I understand part of that as a
Well, what
medium.
I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
yes, yes, is that your perceiving of someone's physical death is just them moving into a dimension. And sometimes it's just different. I will use your expression, humans, of timeline work. They couldn't bring it over, but that's a very messy topic because, again, it seems that you love the dramatics too much.
Okay. No, I hear you. And I think we'll move on to the next question here. Is that okay with you, or do you have more to add on that?
Yes, I will likely speak about this again, but now is not the time.
Great, thank you. I'm sure people got a lot from that. Anyway, my next question is about okay, first we'll start it with what's your perceived difference between channelers or channeling and trance? Because there's people who are channelers who channel other beings, etc., and trance. Our intention here when working with you on this channel is to be in a trance state. And so my question is for viewers and other learners and ourselves, what's the differences between trance and channeling? Do they matter in the way the information comes out? And I guess then would be, and how does that relate to why channelers say different things from each other?
I see. That is, again, a very human question.
Yes.
Channelers, from my perspective, are those that are bringing in what I suppose you would say higher levels of information from outside of themselves. My perception is that they are not bringing in information from outside of themselves because more than likely they're bringing in information that are more so coming from their higher selves. in the human understanding. So it's going within your own specific line of energy. You're still within your own field, much, much larger than, say, again, your conscious brain or your own auric field, if you can understand that. But you're still following that specific line of information. You're just simply allowing it to come forward.
So
Does
if they
this make
say
sense
they're,
so far?
yes, I think so. Um, my question though would be, there's some who believe or think they're channeling like Palladians or the Octarians. Are they actually doing this? Are they entering a trance state, or is they a higher self thing? Like, so is there a
That is
distinction?
possible because that line could be within their direct field. So, depending on their DNA, depending on whatever's going on in that particular, I'll use the word bubble, that energy may be in that place. They may even be moving over to, say, a parallel understanding, like a parallel life, and directing the line in that way. Because again, as you understand, there really is no separation. It's just if I'm using the term channeling, my
Mm-hmm.
perception is that information is closer to that individual.
Okay.
It's not as required for the brain to be as relaxed to bring in this information because it's already right there within their field. They're just reaching out to get it closer into the physical, into the
Okay.
mental layers, into the emotional layers, if you can understand it that way.
I think so. And so for mm,
I see where you're going. So to go into the trance state, this is the same, slightly different. That just means that you're pulling from farther away from your individual field. It's required of the brain to be in a much calmer state because the conscious mind cannot interfere. The conscious mind, so if we're speaking of channeling, the information is touching on the conscious mind. It doesn't mean it's being interfered with, but it's still touching it. In the trance state, the conscious mind must step back even further so that your reach for information can be wider. Like the person you are seeing speak right now, that's not who's speaking. What's happening is that the conscious mind must quiet down enough and must step back for my consciousness.
if we if we linked the word consciousness with identity, and so in trance, the person must let go of more of their identity in order to let your identity speak through their physical form. Would
Yes, I
that,
see what you're saying. Yes.
and whereas in channeling, it's more of a shared, they still keep their
Right.
identity.
The information is coming from, trying to explain in the way that my perception, the information is still settled within their, say, mental field or emotional field. The use of telepathy. So when you're talking about these channelers that are claiming a certain identity, that could be the case. But the trance difference, again, from your perspective, because from my perspective, like, it does not matter. But yes, it is setting your own individuality aside, more of your identity aside. Yes.
Okay.
I
Um,
see. From your perspective, it can allow more purity of the information rather than filtering through that mental field of your
as
consciousness.
as much,
Yes.
right? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Um, And
I
that's
see. I should give the example of using this individual's brain, of having to translate. There is still translation because this is still a human body and consciousness, and yes, but there is less translating versus if it were simply channeling, there would be a pause so that her brain could understand it, or I can use the information in her brain to convey the information.
so for both trance and channelers, learning about more of a topic that they would like to speak on. So, say I was wanting to speak on sciences, learning more about sciences for both cases would be more important, or I could just work trance and then I don't need to know as much of that information because it's easier for that information to come through, as an example, and just for
It could
people
be
developing.
helpful. Yes, it could be helpful because if you have a conscious understanding, it will help you fall more into that. It would basically open that energetic door.
That's interesting and definitely something that uh, I'll think about and makes a lot of sense in my healing work. So I just figured I would ask. And I know evidential mediumship often works in a very similar way that, you want to review names, you want to learn flowers, et cetera, to assist in the communication. No, is Dobby being distracting?
Yes.
Yeah, and that is okay. Just so everybody knows, Megan has a cute little dachshund, Dobby, and sometimes he's a little bit distracting. So just kind of we'll give her a second to get back to the state that we like to speak from. Breathe. We will come in and assist. We'll help smooth the system out. So earlier we were talking about channelers and the difference between trance and channeling. So thank you for the clarity on your guys' perception of the difference between channeling and trance for us. Why are channelers saying so many different things? Sometimes possibly even totally contradictory to each other. Um, why are there so many different messages happening?
This is a
That's,
large question.
mm-hmm. That's just
Part of it, from my understanding, is the amount of, quote, outside energy coming through. If you can understand information coming through filtered through your individual energy, that will color the information. When we spoke about trance, it's a more, again, quote, outside energy coming within your energy. I'm only saying that in quotes because, again, we're connected. Anyway, the trance is just pulling from farther outward, again, just to give you that visual. However, there are a lot of people saying a lot of things. I can see that. And I will not sound too, yes, she wishes for me not to sound too conspiracy sounding. But I must say that some people are living through a different lens or agenda. That doesn't mean that they don't truly feel that they are channeling information. They quite possibly are. It's just that that information is not as aligned with, how should I say, the specific frequency that is most helpful as the collective. That specific frequency may be more helpful to a smaller group. but it really also is about perception. One, say, channeler who is saying something, they may be lifting on, okay, I'll rephrase and say that they're consuming different information.
I can see how that would impact the
Right.
human filter that they would be, channeling through, right?
They may be very filtered because of that information. Again, this is not to say that they are not actually doing what they're saying they're doing. They may not be aware that they're going through this specific filter, but that is for them to understand because they may be living in that other reality.
That's very interesting. So,
Mhm.
and thank you for that. Would you say that it's best if people just try and tap into themselves as opposed to taking channelers and trance or whatever too seriously? That, to be
I
discerning,
suppose
I guess,
so.
would say, you
I
know,
suppose so, but from my perspective, it's really not challenging. The ones that you will resonate with will be the ones that are right there in front of you. The ones that you will not will very easily fall away from your reality. And the ones that are there that you do not say resonate with, you will feel that. You will understand that. It will sound like gibberish to you. So, yes, it's always valuable to check in with yourself, but it's not challenging. They just won't be a part of your reality. I
okay.
see. It's important to note that some that don't feel that they resonate with you immediately, that's not because they're not resonating with you. It's because they haven't resonated with you yet. For example, I might sound like I'm speaking gibberish to you right now, but just the fact that you sat in this energy and you absorbed this energy of the transmission, it could be 2 years from now, and then something within your field will click because you sat in this energy. I see. That's very important to say. So, unless you're feeling extremely repelled, all of it still has value. It's just that you are listening through not just your filters, but you're listening through their filters. Just about every single one still has a filter on it, and that's okay.
So, would you say that it's akin to listening to advice from a friend or something where you kind of, you know, use your discretion or take what's helpful and not, and do some people take it, more seriously than they should?
Yes, yes. The point is, none of them, these beings that you think you're channeling, none of them are any more important than you. None of them have information that you don't already have. But the point of why we are choosing to come through is because we're trying to help remind you of what you already have, not instruct you to become something else or tell you something you don't already know because you already know it. All we're trying to do is help open up that for you. So, yes, if you could understand it more in that way of a friend on the same level, it just happens to be speaking in a different format. None of them or us are meant to be any sort of higher authority. And I see that becomes an issue.
Mm-hmm. I see that sometimes it could become an issue too. It's definitely not the intention of this channel.
Not at
Um,
all. The reason why I feel so passionate about this is because our hope is to dispel fear. There are so many individuals feeling lost, and they seek out this information, deeming it to be higher than themselves. And there are some that choose to take advantage of this and spread, to my perspective, is fear. You must behave this certain way because this is our outcome and this is what's going to happen. Therefore, you must prepare for this and you must change who you are and all of these things. I understand that some of those individuals truly feel that they're helping and spreading information that's helpful, but in many, many ways, that is not helpful to the collective. If you can understand that what's trying to happen within the collective now is reducing fear. Remember, we have discussed moving upwards in dimension.
mhm.
In
Yes.
these next planes, that same level and frequency of fear cannot exist. So it feels more comfortable to listen to some of those people, or even for some of those people to bring in that same sort of frequency. They could be tainting their own, quote, higher information simply because their, I'll say, humanness is still gripping onto the same old constructs without them understanding what they're doing. They're trying to make the pieces fit into what their human mind can understand as far as your third dimensional reality. But what's happening more on the human collective scale is that you're actually trying to leave that behind. And the more you try to leave something behind, the more many individuals want to grab onto it. So for me, I find no purpose in contributing to anything fearful. Because if my purpose is to try to help you move towards the next levels of dimension and frequency, why would I continue to give something to you and feed you that? You already understand what it means to live in fear. You already understand as much as you can possibly understand. Humans know the third dimension. You know what it's like to experience almost everything in the third dimension. Therefore, it's time to move. There is no point in staying in the same dimension permanently. There is no more knowledge to gain. So if from my view, I am trying to help you with what the human collective wants, why would I continue to give you the same information? However, I say that in a way of just speaking from my perspective. That's what's
Mhm.
different. You may turn this on and listen to someone else, and they have a different perspective. This is just because maybe that one frequency is a gentler approach that will still operate in the frequencies that you understand and more slowly move you upward. That doesn't mean they're not doing their purpose. So I'll
Uh,
say that it's
yeah,
not only a channeler situation, but it's also the individual situation. That individual may be seeking out some, again, I will quote, higher information, but they can only take so much. Their conscious mind wishes to wrap around a different concept. Therefore, it must be packaged and given to them in a different way.
that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. And just how every human has their own perspective. It
Exactly.
it's important for people to realize when they're interacting with these types of content that those who are the information coming in also has its own perspective, just like the person bringing in the information has its own perspective. So I really appreciate that.
Yes.
It's very, very great explanation there. Thank you so much.
I would like to state again that every single one of them has a purpose. This isn't for me to tell you to not listen to any one of them because every one has a purpose. And that purpose is to help propel you forward. It's just the particular individual may lean towards something else. That's not to say that any of them are wrong. There are infinite number of realities in this very moment. But I don't wish to say that you need to worry so much, because the ones that will not help you or resonate with you will just simply not be in your awareness. Even if you don't understand me in this moment, you may understand me 2 years from now, 5 years from now, or you may not ever, but it will be there within your energy field as, say, food for you later.
Mm-hmm. Fabulous. Thank you.
That is a very important question. I don't see it asked enough.
Well, I'm really glad that we could cover it. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about?
I'm looking now, but I appreciate that question because it reminds me to say that I'd like to remind everyone that no one is actually more above you. I would encourage all of you to seek out your own, quote, higher information within yourself. It doesn't have to look like this or anything else, but this information is not only within your particular band that we discussed earlier for the quote channelers,
Mm-hmm.
and it's including farther outside of that band, like what you say, trance. It may not even look like that at all. It may just be anything. I don't even want to give one example because then you'll focus on that one example. But
That's
I would
fine.
just like everyone to understand that all of that is there for you at any moment. There is no higher or following, because again, this is another thing that humanity is trying to move away from, of leader and follower roles.
Yeah. Which is awesome. Yeah.
Yes, you're moving towards, you have chosen to feel more equal among yourselves. You're moving away towards the leader and follower. So I would encourage you to just examine that. Just notice where you feel that you are the leader or the follower, and understand even just a mental exercise of putting yourself on the same pedestal. What would you need to feel that? What would you need to feel that that's accurate for you? Because it already is. You're just playing a role that has nothing to do with your value or your knowledge or your worth. It's just the role that you're playing.
It's driving me a little crazy. In front of your glasses is a piece of hair. Are you able to move the piece of
Yes.
hair?
We'll move. Hold on. Okay. That was too fast. I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yes. Thank you. I just couldn't let it sit any longer. I'm
No, I
sorry.
appreciate that because it would have driven me nuts when I was looking at the video.
I'm sorry that I didn't do it sooner then. Sorry to interrupt. I feel like you were maybe done there.
It does feel accomplished.
Good. Thank you. I really love that. It was a very beautiful message. I think I'm going to even leave that clip in just for on authenticity's sake. Um, so, uh,
Yeah,
mhm.
actually, you know what? If we're still even on, I'm not ever on here because I'm them. So I'll just say thanks.
Yeah, thanks to everybody. Yeah, it's kind of jumping out there.
Yeah, no, she's still there, but she actually feels pretty done for the
Pretty
day.
done. Okay. I will just say thank you, everyone, then. And we're going to end the video here. And thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, Unity Frequency Council, for joining us today. And I'm going to ask Megan to slowly come back It's less harmful for your system if you're slow about it. Anyway, everyone, thank you so much. Have a great day. And yeah, like and share and all that if you feel inclined, it'll happen or not. You'll feel inspired or not. And we're going to go with that. So